Who are the greatest Formula One drivers to never win a world championship? Welcome back to GPFans as we look back over the history of F1 to find the very best drivers to never win the ultimate prize and reign over the sport as a world champion. Before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on any of our future videos on all things Formula One. Here's our top 10. Disagree with any of our picks? Tell us why in the comments below. Number 10. Robert Kubica. Why is Robert Kubica one of the greatest drivers to never win a world championship? Just ask Fernando Alonso. The two-time world champion had this to say on Kubica in 2017. With the same car, he was beating all the generation that are winning now, said Alonso, who faced Kubica during their karting days and the best period of the Pole's F1 career. So, I think he's the best. That would be the best of a generation that included Jenson Button, Kimi Raikkonen, Sebastian Vettel, and of course, Alonso himself. But Kubica could perform even in cars that couldn't compete. At the time of this video, he remains the only driver to ever win a Grand Prix for Sauber. Kubica finished 8th in the Drivers' Championship in 2010, 109 points ahead of his Renault teammate Vitaly Petrov. Then, disaster struck. While rally racing in Andorra in 2011, a horror crash left Kubica with major injuries, including the partial amputation of his right arm. Kubica would later reveal he'd been in talks with Ferrari, an opportunity that would have catapulted him into the world title contention. He had the talent to become a world champion, but never the car. Number 9. Francois Cevert. Why is Francois Cevert one of the greatest drivers to never win a world championship? Cevert was set to be Tyrrell's new lead driver, succeeding his mentor and 1973 world champion Sir Jackie Stewart. However, tragedy would take that chance away from him. During qualifying for the last race of the 1973 season, Cevert collided with the barrier. He was killed instantly. Sir Jackie Stewart and Tyrrell withdrew from the race. It would have been Stewart's 100th and final race in Formula One, and a fitting moment to pass the torch to Cevert, a driver Stewart believed had become his equal after 4 years as a teammate. Number 8. Didier Pironi. Why is Didier Pironi one of the greatest drivers to never win a world championship? In 1982, Pironi was leading the Drivers' Championship with only 5 races to go. In wet conditions, he collided with Alain Prost's Renault and the resulting crash left him so badly injured that he would never race in Formula One again. He missed out on becoming world champion to Keke Rosberg, who won the title by just 5 points. Had Pironi been able to drive in those final races of the season, it is likely that he would have been world champion at least once. Pironi would recover from his injuries to walk again, and even race, albeit on water. Sadly, he would lose his life in a powerboat racing accident just 5 years after the crash that ended his time on Formula One. Number 7. Gilles Villeneuve. Why is Gilles Villeneuve one of the greatest drivers to never win a world championship? The Canadian was one of the most popular and talented drivers of his era, and both a rival and teammate to our last entry, Didier Pironi. A prodigious racing talent, Villeneuve got his chance in Formula One after impressing the great James Hunt. He certainly had the ability to be a world champion, but at the start of the 1982 season, he was killed in a crash at the Belgian Grand Prix. At his funeral, Villeneuve was named the fastest driver in the history of motor racing by Jody Scheckter, his former teammate. A world champion in his own right, Scheckter knew what it took to win the Drivers' Championship. Villeneuve would have surely claimed at least one title for himself in his career had he survived. But the Villeneuve family name was eventually etched onto the list of champions when Gilles' son Jacques won the Drivers' Championship 15 years later in 1997. Number 6. Juan Pablo Montoya. Why is Juan Pablo Montoya one of the greatest drivers to never win a world championship? Montoya was one of the only drivers with the ability and courage to take the fight to Michael Schumacher at the German's peak. The Colombian was incredibly quick. He thrilled audiences with both his bold and exciting driving style and fiery character. Yet he had little patience for the backroom politics of Formula One and left the sport for a career in NASCAR, IndyCar, and endurance racing at Daytona and Le Mans to prove his racing pedigree. At his best, Montoya showed he had the racecraft to be world champion. Inconsistency prevented him from going all the way. Number 5. Mark Webber. Why is Mark Webber one of the greatest drivers to never win a world championship? Webber was fast no matter the car – Minardi, Jaguar, Williams or Red Bull. In 2010 he was a true rival to Vettel as the German won the first of his 4 world titles. Webber had led the championship himself that season, however decisions and incidents didn't go his way. Once Vettel's reign over Formula 1 was underway, the Australian was relegated to the status of second driver. Webber had the ability to be so much more. Number 4. Ronnie Peterson. Why is Ronnie Peterson one of the greatest drivers to never win a world championship? Super Swede Ronnie Peterson was a driver with the raw pace and overtaking flair to be a true champion. Twice a runner-up in the Drivers' Championship, he was often let down by unreliable cars. Had he not lost his life in a crash during the 1978 Italian Grand Prix, it was surely only a matter of time before Peterson had a car that could deliver his talent to the biggest prize in Formula 1. Number 3. Carlos Reutemann. Why is Carlos Reutemann one of the greatest drivers to never win a world championship? Reutemann is a real what-if driver. He came second in the 1981 Drivers' Championship, losing out to Nelson Piquet in the final race of the season. A year later, his teammate Keke Rosberg would win the championship in a car that could have handed Reutemann his own world title. But by then, the Argentinian had already retired from Formula 1 due to politics instead of injury. Reutemann decided his position on the grid was untenable given tensions over the Falklands War and stepped away from the sport. A great shame for Formula 1 as Reutemann was an exceptional driver and would have been a worthy world champion. Number 2. David Coulthard. Why is David Coulthard one of the greatest drivers to never win a world championship? Well, only one driver in the history of Formula 1 has won more Grand Prix without lifting the Drivers' Championship than Coulthard. We'll get back to the identity of that other driver shortly. Coulthard, however, was so often chasing the title leader only for his car to falter or find that his timing was off, landing at the right team at the right time. He was, after all, the first driver to race for Red Bull, only to miss out on the era of cars that saw Vettel become a champion. Coulthard's best season came in 2001, finishing second to Schumacher, and it's fair to say that any driver who found their career taking place under the reign of the German will wonder what could have been had they raced in a more open era. That's especially true of Coulthard. He may be remembered now for his longevity and second career as a commentator, but make no mistake, he was an excellent driver in his day. Number 1. Sir Stirling Moss. Why is Sir Stirling Moss the greatest driver to never win a world championship? Because no other driver has won as many Grand Prix races without lifting the Drivers' Championship. He won 16 races from just 66 starts and finished runner-up in the Drivers' Championship 4 times, coming third on 3 occasions. A legendary figure in motor racing for reasons beyond his undoubtable talent, Moss is remembered as the ultimate gentleman who personified the class of Formula 1 on and off the track. He even defended his title rival Mike Hawthorn in 1958 when the latter picked up a penalty in one of the last races of that season. Moss protested the decision. Hawthorn retained a second-place finish and would go on to beat Moss to the title by 1 point. Imagine Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen helping each other out like that. Moss would call time on his pursuit of the world title following a serious crash in 1962 at the Goodwood circuit. After a month in a coma, he thankfully came to, although he had to recover from paralysis of the left side of his body. Moss left an indelible mark on Formula 1, despite never winning a world championship. Who do you think is the greatest driver to never win the Formula 1 Drivers' Championship? Who is missing from our top 10? Let us know in the comments below. And to stay on the grid, check out our next video from GP Fans on your screen now.